Welcome back, guys. So today we will be beautifying our website using inline CSS style. So now what is our goal for today? The first thing we need to learn is what CSS is and why it is important. The second thing is to understand how to use inline CSS style. Then we'll explore common CSS properties. We'll make our HTML tables look amazing and we'll create our own style. Now, what is CSS? CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. This is a language that makes the website look absolutely gorgeous. And CSS controls colors, fonts, spacing, and more. Now, what does CSS do for you? What CSS does is this. I already told you that HTML is just like bricks when you are building a house. So now when you use bricks to structure your house, it doesn't beautify it. It only gives it a structure. It looks like a house now, right? But then how do you beautify it? You use colors, you use a whole lot of things to beautify your house. Now this is what the CSS does. So after your HTML, what comes in is CSS. So there are three ways to use CSS. The first one is inline CSS, which is directly in the HTML tag using the style sheets. There's another one called internal CSS, and it's always in the head. I told you the structure of HTML, and I told you that it starts with doctype, HTML, you see the head, and you see the body. Now, I told you that where you add the style for internal CSS is in the head. You already know what your head is. You don't really see any content you add to your head on the page of your website. You see it's just outside. Now there's another one called external CSS. External CSS, you have to create a different link for it, a CSS file for it, not a link, a different file. It happens outside the particular file you're working on. You leave it there strictly for, I told you how to structure your page by creating folders and files, you know. So now there's something called external CSS, where you now keep your CSS file in a different file. CSS, everything you are styling on the page, you keep it in a file so that everything happens there. But then we're not going to dive into that. We're going to strictly learn inline CSS today. Okay, because it is the easiest to start with. I want you to fully understand what CSS does before we go to different types, okay? So the thing we are going to figure out today is what an inline CSS is. Now, inline CSS involves adding CSS style directly to a HTML element using the style attributes. Now, how does the styling work? When you have your tag, you add the style attributes inside that opening tag. Now, see my code here. The H1 is here, and it is not closed with a slash yet. What do? You put a style inside that opening tag. Now this is where the closing happens, the tag closing happens here. Your content is here in between the two tags, the opening and the closing. Your content is there, like this one that says food menu. So now how do you add your inline style? You use the attribute called style. Look at this code I have right here. The attribute called style, and then you say equal to colon. You say equal to, you give a quote, you put your property, whatever thing you want to change in your HTML. If you want to change the font, if you want to change the width, if you want to change the height, that is what comes here. Now you can have font size here in place of color. I'll show you how it's done. You don't need to be worried, okay? Now let me show you what this looks like, exactly what it does in your website. Now we're going to the VS Code. We're going to the VS Code, and for this particular lesson. I want to create a file for it, a separate file. Now, what do we do here? We name it style.html. Like I said the last time, when you are creating a file, a HTML file, you make sure that you put the .html behind, because it's the only way you tell your VS Code that you are trying to create a HTML. Now we start. I already told you the structure of the HTML, and I'll be doing that now. Make sure you are following. So now in the body, what we'll do is we will add something. Let us use a tag. You can use any one of your choice for text, because what I want to do is I want to change my text color to something. Now I'll be using the P tag. As you can see, it has the opening and the closing tag. If you want to add a content, I did not say style yet. If you want to add your content, it has to be in between the first opening tag and the last one, which is the closing tag. Now, in between here, I want to write a text that we can see on our browser. My wonderful website. This is my wonderful website. Let's see how it looks. I already told you how you can view your work using Live Server. So now we'll open with Live Server. Now look at it. My wonderful website. Now I want the text to be different. I want it to be red. Now let's do that. Let me show you how you add a style to your tag, to your elements. So now you say, like I taught you, the first thing you write, I didn't say you should write it in between the two tags. I said in between, inside that your first opening tag is where you put the attributes for styling. This is strictly for inline styling. Now I am going to say style equal to. Now when I said equal to, it already gave me the quotes automatically. That's what VS Code does. It's really, really nice. Now I want to change the color. Now, one thing I want you to note is this. When you want to change the color of your text, the property you will use is color, just color. The normal color, C-O-L-O-R. That's the property name you will use. But if you want to change the color of, let's say, background, you have to indicate by saying background color. That is the property name. You can always research all the properties, all the CSS properties on your own. That is an assignment for you. You can always research that. There are so many properties. Now, this particular one I'm adding is for changing the color of a text, and it is called the color property. Now, let's do this. I will write color. You can see it's already giving me a suggestion of color. Now, as I clicked on it, it gave me this. But don't worry, so I do not get you confused. Once you type your color, you do this, the colon, and you write whatever thing you want. I am picking red. So I am using color as red. Now let me save it and let's see what it looks like. My text changed to red. That's wonderful. This is what you do with styling. It makes your work really beautiful. So we'll go to the next thing we have. Yes. I've already taught you the inline CSS syntax, which is when you have your tag. It can be P, it can be H1. You, inside that first opening tag, you say style equal to quotes, that CSS property that you want to add. It can be width, it can be height, it can be width, it can be font size, it can be anything. I asked you to search for more of the properties, but don't worry, we'll still be doing more. Now I use color here, and I used a value called red. You have your content you want to display. So there are rules to follow. You have to put the CSS property and value inside the double quotes. This is what the quote does. That quote there is where you now put the property and the value. So this is what you do. You do style equal to quotes. And inside that quote, you have your CSS property. Let's say, for instance, color. You have colon, and then you have the value, which is pink, red, blue, whatever thing you want, and you close it with a semicolon. Let's continue. We have written our first inline style. Now I want you to write yours. Use any tag of your choice to do that. And I want the text to be, my favorite color is whatever color you want. If you like purple, you like red, you use that. Now, there are common color names categorized into 3 groups. You can get the basic color, you can get the neutral color, you can get the different shades. Now, basic colors are red, blue, yellow, green, purple, orange. Neutral colors come as black, white, gray, silver. Then there are different shades like light blue, dark red, pink, teal, navy. There are a whole lot of colors out there, so you can always make your choice. Now, there's something called text size in CSS. How do you increase the size of your text? Now, I don't like how my p tag is looking, but I want to increase it. How do I do that? You can use pixels. Pixel is what you use for your font size. You can use pixel, you can use points, you can use EM, you can use REM. There are so many sizes that you can use for your font styling, for increasing the font size or reducing the font size. But don't worry about it. I will still break it down further so that you will understand. Now, for this my p tag, I want to increase the font to something else. Let me show you what it looks like already, so that you see that we can do wonders with our CSS. Now, look at how it looks right now. But I want it to look bigger because it's looking way too tiny. Now, I will go to my p tag. I will close this particular one with a semicolon, which means I am done with this. But because I want to add something else, don't worry. See, I will teach you how to add another style here. But before that, so I do not get too confused, I'm creating another p tag. I told you can have a lot of tags. You can have the same tag a whole lot of times. The p now, I am creating it again, and I want to say, my website is beautiful. Beautiful. Now I will show you what it looks like right now on our browser, so that when I change the font size, you know that there's a difference. Good, right? So this is what it looks like right now, but I want it to be bigger. I'm talking about this last one. This is the last one I added. I want it to be bigger. So how do I do that? I will go to that p tag, just the beginning of the p tag. I will add the style attributes like we did before. Style, remember to do this in small letters. Style equal to the quotes, and then we'll add our property inside. What do we want to add? The font size. We want to increase our font size, and I want to give it 30 pixels. Let me see how it will be. I'm giving it 30 pixels. Okay, I'll save my work and then go back to my browser to check it out. Now look at how big it's looking. It was just a normal p tag before that is always tiny, right? Now I have increased the font by 30. You see, this is beautiful. These are one of the many things you can do with CSS. So we'll go back and we'll continue. Okay, now there is something called a font style. You know this already in your normal typing, where you have italic, you have the normal for like bold, you have the oblique, just the normal. Okay, now this right here is the normal. It's the regular straight up text that you know. you have the italic, and it is slanted or stylish. You have the oblique, that is similar to italic, but a bit different. But then it is rarely used. It is rarely used. And we also have font family. Font family changes the type of letters you use, like changing your handwriting style. You get? Font family changes the type of letters you see. Like the Arial, it comes simple and clean. There's Times New Roman, and it comes fancy and traditional. There's Comic Sans. It looks playful and fun. There's also Georgia stylish serif. There are so many font families out there. It's just like you having, we all have a different handwriting, right? Now there are different handwritings there for you to use. And the next one you need to know is the font weight. Font weight tells the thickness or boldness of your text. Now there are common values. You can use the normal weight, which is a regular weight text. You can use the bold, which is thicker. Like I'm telling you this, when you say font weight as a CSS property and then you add your colon, you can decide to say normal, or you can decide to say bold, or you can decide to say bolder. Or then you can also use numeric values if you do not want to use these letters here. You can say font weight 100, or font weight 400, or font weight 700, or font weight 900. A whole lot of things. You have 100, 200, 300, down to 900. So now the 900 is very bold, 700 bold, 400 normal, 100 is very thin. So we'll continue. I will show you how you add the font weight. Let's go back to our VS Code. Now to this particular text I have here, you already know that it looks like this. This is how it looks. Now I want to increase the font weight. Okay. Now, look at what I want to do. I will just right beside the first style I already added. I want to now add a font weight. Since it's still here, everything we are doing is still inside the quotes, which means it's now giving us the opportunity to add as many styles as you want, as long as you end the first one with a semicolon. This colon here means you are done with this style, this font size. Now we'll continue by adding a font weight. Font hyphen weight. I want the font weight to be, now as I clicked on font weight, it gave me options. I told you about the numerical values, which are 100, 200, 300, 400, down to 900. Or you can also use the common values, which are bold, bolder, lighter. But then I'll be using 900 because I want my font weight to be really thick. Another thing I want to add is a font family. Like I said, no matter how many styles you want to add in one tag, you can do that inside that same quote. You don't need to keep calling style, style, style. As long as you have one style there already written, that your style attribute already written, you can have as many styles as possible inside. So now I will do this, the font weight. Okay, no, we've already done the font weight. I want to add a font family. This is our font family, and when you click on it, it gives you options. I will use this, which one? I will use the Times New Roman. Now let's see how my text looks. Can you see it is really bold? Really, really, really thick. Now the weight increased and it has changed its font family. I want to try out another one. You can always play around with this. Let me try fantasy. I'll save my work, and then I'll go to this. Now look at how fantasy looks. You see, there are so many ways you can style your website with using CSS. Now let's go back to our class. I want to give you a quick test. I want you to change the font of your text with font family. I want you to make your text bold with font weight. And I want you to make the text italic with font style. Now, you have to pause this video right now and do it yourself. But I will continue. The next thing I want us to know is text decoration. Text decoration is another property that you have in the CSS. Text decoration is just like adding accessories to your text. Now, what do you do with text decoration? You can add, when you write a text and you want it to have an underline, you do that using text decoration. And if you want to have a line that will cross through your text, you can also do that using text decoration. If you want to remove a line under your link, you can do that using text decoration. Now, what do I mean by under a link? If you remember that when we did the anchor tag, which is the A tag, when we did that A tag, when you write a text in between the A tag, you get something called, when you get something that looks like a line, it's actually a line. It comes with the A tag. Now, if you don't want to see that when you are building your website, you can always remove it using text decoration. Now, I'll show in real life, when you write something and you want to underline, what do? You just rule a line, right? And when you want to just cancel what you did with just one line, you can also run a line through your text, right? Good. So now let's do that using our VS Code. So now I'll be creating the anchor tag. This is what the anchor tag looks like. Right now, I will not be adding a link yet because I don't need it to link to anywhere for now. I just want to show you what it looks like when you add a text. Now I am adding a text. Click me. Let's save and see what it looks like in our browser. Now you see the click me has a line underneath that is there. It's there, but it's not permanent because you can use your CSS to get rid of it, you know. So we'll go back to our code. Let me show you how you can get rid of it. Now inside our anchor tag, inside our A tag, you give a space and do the style thing again, the style that I told you. Now what do? There is an attribute called text decoration. Okay, text decoration comes in different forms. You can either make it dashed, you can make it dotted, you can make it double, you can make it line through, you can make it none, you can make it overline, you can make it a whole lot of things. Now, since our line is there and we don't want the line, the text already has a line and we want to remove it, what do you click on? I feel you should click on none, don't you think so? So we'll click on none. We don't want a text decoration. Now let's save and see if our line will still be there. Now you see it is not here anymore. We don't have a line underneath. That is what the text decoration none does. It doesn't give you any line at all. So now I want to add a line to this my website here. My website is beautiful. The P tag, I want to add a line to it. How do I do it? I go to that P tag. Let me just use the first P since it doesn't have much styles in it. So just beside the semicolon, since we've already added one style, we close that particular style using a semicolon. Now just right beside it, we are adding another style, another attribute, which is text decoration. Text decoration, and we'll say let us line through. Let's see what happens when you say line through. Save your work and you go back to this, look at what happened. It has a line through. Now look at this. Now let's say you want to cancel your work. This is what it looks like when you are writing with your pen. So now this is what happens when you line through using the text decoration property. So now that's wonderful. You can always play around with every other text decoration value out there. Now let's go back to what we have. The next thing we have is text alignment. You can always align your text using the alignment, the text align property. If you want your text to move to the left, if you want it to move to the right, you can do that. If you want it to move to the center, you can also do that. Now let's see if we have one we can use, for instance. Now I want to know if I can move my text to the center. Let's use the text align property. Say text align center. Text align center. Good. Let's see. Let's save our work. And then we'll go to the browser and see. Now our text moved to the center of the page. This is wonderful. You also have text align right, text align left. You can play around with this while we continue with the class. Now there is something called background color. I told you there is a difference between background color and normal color. You use normal color when you want to add change the color of your text, while you use the attribute background color if you want to change the background of your of anything, of your content. Now let's look for one to change the background color. Now let's use the p tag still. We'll add a background color of, let's say, blue. Let's know if this will reflect. Can you see what happened? This is the p tag. You know this whole line is for our p tag. This whole line right here is for our p tag because it has nothing else right beside it. The whole line is for the p tag. Now that we added a background color, it has changed the whole background color surrounding the p tag. That is wonderful. Now we can also do that to this one, to this particular p tag here. Let's change the background color to yellow. So now you still go to this place and you write background color yellow. Let's see what will happen. You save it. You go to your browser. Now you see the p tag here takes up a lot of space. Now because we increase the width of this text, the width of our p tag has increased. Now the background color is looking a lot more bigger than the one here because the text is still small. This is what the background color does for you. Let's go back. The next thing is borders. I can add a border. A border is just a line, a distinct line that surrounds an element. What do I mean by an element? This p tag is an element. I told you the HTML elements are so many, over 100 HTML tags, and every name you have inside are the elements. So you have the paragraph, you have a whole lot of elements in the HTML. You have the headings. So now let me show you. Let me add a border to our text, and we can increase the width by adding a number first. You can make it solid. You can give it any form. It can be dotted, and you can now give it a color if you choose to. So now let's do that. For this, I will be using this anchor tag here since we've not done much to it. So this particular one, I will be adding a border, I will say 2px solid. It can be solid, it can be dotted, just a whole lot. 2px solid, I want the color to be pink. Now let's see what the anchor tag looks like. Now see what it looks like. We've given it a border. We have given our anchor tag a border that has the color of pink. Now the next thing I want us to learn is border radius. This property helps add rounded colors to your border. Now, when I added that border initially, it came out looking like this. You can also make your border look rounded like this. So the higher the number, the more rounded the elements will be. So we'll be adding the border radius. Let's add a border radius to our anchor tag. Border radius. Border radius. Let's say 10px. Let's see what will happen to the shape we had initially. Can you see how it looks now? It looks bigger. It looks curved. It looks curved now. This is what the border radius does. I can still change it to something else. Let's make it 20px. This is how it's looking when I did the 20px. So now let's continue. There is something called padding. The padding property is for adding spaces between content and its border. Now the padding happens inside that your content. Okay? And there's something called margin. Margin happens outside your border, which is outside the entire content. You see this image I have over here? The padding was done, this is the content, and the padding was done inside the content. The content ends here. This is the border of the content. This is the border of our content, and the padding is happening right inside, while the margin is happening outside our margin. Outside our content. Let me show you how to apply this in your VS Code. So we'll go back to any of our tags. I'll be using the anchor again since we've already added a border to it. So here I'll go to the last semicolon I have and I'll add a margin. I'll say the margin will be let's say 20 pixels. Now let's see what will happen when we save this and check it in our browser. Now look at this. Our click me is already moving outside of where it was because we've added a margin. This particular margin of 20px is adding space here, top, left, bottom, and right. It is adding 20px towards around the corners of the click me. And then I want it to have a padding. Let me show you what happens when you add a padding. Now you see that this border and the text seem to be so close to each other. Now I want to add a padding because our click me wants to actually breathe. Now how do we add a padding? Still inside the tag, you say padding. Let's give it 30 pixels. Save and see what it actually looks like. Now, can you see how big it's looking now? Because we have given it enough room to really relax and breathe. Next thing we have to check out is the padding properties. Now, on your own, I want you to pause this video and check out all the properties we have and try it out in your Visual Studio Code. Now we have the padding, which sets space on all sides. I already told you that the padding sets space and on all sides. Like when I did the click me, I added equal space to all the sides. And padding top only adds padding to the top of the elements. I'll show you this particular one while you figure out the rest. So now let me take out the padding and show you how to add padding to just the top. Now I'll take out this padding here in my anchor tag. I'll take it out first, save it, and show you what it looks like now. This is what it looks like. It's back to being tiny again. Now I only want to add padding to the top. How do you do that? You say padding top and you give it, let's say, 20px. Save your work, go back and view it in your browser. Now you only see the space here. It happened just on the top. Now if you want to add it to the left, you change the padding top to padding left and give it any size you want. So I will give you, I will advise you pause the video and try out all the properties, padding properties available. So this one that is top, right, bottom, and left. Look at how you do it. You just write the padding tag, the padding property. You say, you give it like 4 different pixels or 4 different font size you are using. You can say 5 pixels, 10 pixels, 15 pixels, 20 pixels. Now what are you doing? You're telling it, give 5 pixels to the top, give 10 pixels to the right, give 15 pixels to the bottom, and give 20 pixels to the left. That means you don't want to have equal padding. So the next thing is margin properties. Now, just like how we have, I told you about the margin, we have a whole lot of properties just like the padding. You have the margin, just a margin property where you add equal margin to all the elements outside. Then you also have the margin top that adds space to just the top part. You have the same thing as the padding, just the difference is that the margin happens outside the box while the padding happens inside the box. We also have the width and the height. Width and height property. I want to show you how you add this. Now this is what I mean by height. You increase the height of your elements. You can increase the width of your elements. Now see this image right here. This is where you add your margin. How your margin reflects, it happens outside the elements while the padding itself happens inside the elements. And then you have your border. Now let me add a height or width to our anchor tag. Now still here, we already have a lot of styles in just one anchor tag. So now let me just create another element, another one, so that we will not get too confused. I will use another H1 and say hello. Now what do we want to add here? First, I want to add a border so that we'll know what we are working with. You give it a border of 2px solid. Let's make it blue. Let's see what it looks like first before we continue. Now look at what it looks like. Look at what it looks like. Now I want to increase the height. How do I do that? Let's check. I'll write the height and I'll give it a height of 20 pixels. Let's see what will happen. Now it reduced because 20 pixels is actually too small for what the container holds. Let's increase the pixels and see what will happen. I want to increase my pixel height to 100. I'll save and we'll check out. Now look at this. It looks big now. It looks really big. Now I want to make the width 20 pixels. Let's see what it should look like. This is what I mean by the width. The width happens this way while the height happens this way. So now let's see what will happen if we decide to make the width 20 pixels. 20 pixels, save, and then we'll check it out in our browser. Now look at the width has shrinked because 20 pixels is too small for it. So we'll have to increase it to, let's say, 70 pixels. We are just playing around with it. Increase it to 70 pixels. Now look at what happened. The width is now perfect. If I want to increase it further, I still can. Now let me increase it and align our text to the center. I will increase the width to 120, and then I will still give it another style. Text align, center. We'll save our work and see what it really looks like. I have increased it and our text is now aligned to the center within the border. Can you see? That's wonderful. So we'll continue. Now, like I said initially, it is possible to combine multiple styles. You can add multiple properties like we have been doing all along. Just make sure you separate them using a semicolon. Once you are done with one style, like this one, you just have one style opening and everything is happening inside the quotes of that style. Just one style opening contains so many styles. So now we have the color here and it has ended here, because you know it has ended because you are seeing here that it already has a semicolon. That means it's done. This one, font size 40 pixels, ended with a semicolon. You have another one, text align, which ended with a semicolon. That's wonderful. Now we'll continue. Now we've gotten to styling our table with CSS. We worked on a table before, right? Yes. So now it's time to style it using our CSS. There's something called the border collapse. If I recall vividly, I'm sure that there was a table we created that had a whole lot of boxes inside. I'll create another one quickly to show you what I mean. Now for me to do that, I'm also adding a table inside the file we are in, because it's actually possible to add a table anywhere. You don't need to create a separate file for you to do that. Now I'm adding a table here. I'll be adding the row and I'll be adding the data inside. First name, another one, second name, another one, age, now this is our first row. I'll create another row to make it 2 rows. Now we'll do this. We'll create the CD. That will be Jenny. Another one that will be Peter. Then another one that will be the age of Jenny, which is 13. So now let's see what it looks like. I'm sure there'll be no line right now. Now see what it looks like. See what it looks like. Now I want to add a border. The first time we did this, yes, the previous class, we added a border inside the table head. It comes with HTML by default. This is not the CSS style because I've not added any CSS, a style property here, a style attribute. And when you make the border of the table to be 1, it gives you something like this. Let's see. It gives you something like this that has a whole lot of boxes, right? That's perfect still. But then I don't want it to have lines separating it. I want everything to join together and look like a proper table, as it should. So now I'll be going to the HTML, and what will I do? I will style it myself. So personally, I do not want to add the border for everything. I want to style it myself using the style property. Style, and then I'll say border 1px solid and black. Let's see what will appear when we do this. Now it has given me a line, just one line, covering the entire table. But I want each of these tags to have its own border. So what do? We go to the table row, we add a style again, our style attributes, and then we add the border 1px solid black. We'll also add it here, style 1px style border 1px solid black. Now let's see what it looks like. Let's add this to our data itself. This is meant to do the same thing as this. So instead of adding it to our table row, we'll be adding it to the data instead. Now let's just copy this, paste it here, paste it here, paste it here. We'll do the same thing for this. Same thing for this. We'll save and see what will happen. Now it's looking like when we just did the border equal to 1. This is what I wanted to achieve. So now if you do not want to see these lines and you want these double lines here to merge, first of all, for us to see that, I want to increase the width so that we'll see what our table looks like, because it's looking too small already. I'll be giving it a width of, let's say, 80 or 70%. Let's see, save your work and check it out. Now the width is bigger now, so that we'll see what we are working with. I want to add a background color to our table. How do I do that? You write the background color property and you give it, let's say, yellow. So now this will change the color of the entire table. Can you see? The whole thing is now yellow in color. This is now the background color. So I want my table to not have the double lines you are seeing here. I want everything to mesh together as one straight line. How do you do that? You go to your table tag. There is a property called border collapse. and you set it as, it's possible to make it separate and it's possible to make it collapse. Now, when you say collapse, what does it do? It merges all the lines together. Now, let's save and see what it looks like. Now, can you see this is better for me? The lines are not double anymore. I merged it together using the attributes, using the property called border collapse. So we'll continue. We can also decide to style our text. The text, that means our data inside our cell. We can decide to change the color. We can decide to change the font. Just like the one I have here. Can you see the style was added inside the TD, which is the table data? It was aligned to the center, and the font weight was increased. It was changed to bold. The color was changed to red, and it was given a border of gray. You can style each one. That is what CSS does for you. Now I'll be going to one of the table data and I will be styling it so that you know what it does. Now for this particular one, I will change the font size to, let's say, 20 pixels. I want to change the color of the text. So what property do you use for that? You use the color property. I will change the text to white. Let's use white. I'll save my work, and no, before that, I want to also align it to the center. Let's save it. And we'll go back to our browser and check it out. Now see the first one I did the styling, the first table data changed to white. It is now aligned to the center. So this is how you can always play around with your table data or anything you have in your table at all. We can also decide to change the color of that particular table data. I'll be changing the color now. The background color, I will make it red. The background color is now red. Let's save and see if it will work. Now this is it. So this is how you can play around with the styling. You can do a whole lot of things with CSS. So I want you to create something like this for me. I want you to recreate that. I'm sure it will not be too hard for you to do. These are just 4 rows, 3 columns. It has a T head, which was used to style the breakfast, the lunch, and the dinner. Then you put everything exactly as you see it on my screen. You make sure you pause this and do the same thing. And then I want to show you how you can style an image. That will be the last thing I'll be showing you how to do using the VS Code. Now I will get an image by putting now I'm going outside of the table. I want to add my image here because I am done with the table. I'm sure we are also done. Now I'll be adding an image tag because I want to add an image. I also have an image already saved here. I will use that, which is the cheerful cartoon bunny. Now let's view what it looks like in our browser right now. It's looking way too big. Way too big. Now I want to do this. I want to reduce the width. How do I do that? You add the style attributes, and then you do the width. Make it 50 pixels. Save, and you see what it will look like. Let's see what it will look like. Now look at how tiny our image is. So you can do a whole lot of things with your styling, with your CSS. You can always play around with it. You can also increase the width to be the full screen size, anything you want to do. So the last thing is our CSS colors. You have what you call the hex code. You have the RGB values. You have the RGBA values. Now this is what the hex code looks like. Instead of just writing red, you can do the hash FF0000, and it gives you the red color. If you don't want to just go and then write red, you can always use a hex code. It is short for hexadecimal, and it's a 6-digit code that starts with a hash. It uses numbers from 0 to 9 and letters from A to F to show how much red, green, and blue a color has. So they merge these numbers and form a whole lot of colors. So these are ways you can add colors to your website. You can use the RGB, and RGB stands for red, green, and blue. You tell the computer how much red, green, and blue to mix, and you do that using numbers from 0 to 255. There is also one other code called the RGBA, and it is like RGB, but it has an extra A, which stands for alpha, and it controls the opacity. That is how you see through the color. If you don't want it to be too bright, you make the A something like 0.0. It will be fully transparent. And if you make your A 0.2, let's say this is a full color of red here. If you make the last A 1.0, it gives you the full color. If you make it 0.8, it reduces it a bit. You make it 0.6, it reduces the color a bit. You make it 0.4, it keeps going this way until you get 0.0, which is transparent. So it depends on how you want your color to be. If you don't want it to be too bright, if you want it lighter, that is what the last A in the RGB does for you. So there are limitations in CSS. There are reasons why people don't use it often, because you get to repeat a whole lot of styling in just one element, and that's somehow wrong, because at a point you will get confused and your code will get too long. So in case you have issues in your styling, there are common problems you get in CSS, and one of it is syntax errors. Now, if the style is not applying or working, you have to check your CSS code properly. And make sure you're not missing a semicolon between the properties, because it can cause errors. And make sure you use a double quote and you have your style, your property inside the double quotes. Now, this is your assignment. I want you to create a HTML file in VS Code. Write a heading for the page. Create 2 lists. One will be an ordered list and the other will be an unordered list. The first list will have your favorite food, and the other one will have your top 5 hobbies or fun things you do. Now, you use inline styling for this. Change the bullets or number style to something else. You add fun colors as well. Then you style the individual list items. Example, you add a color to one TD, add another color to another TD. So that is what you will do for me. So in our next class, we will fully understand what is internal and external CSS, which are other ways in which you can style your web page. Bye!